I don't remember the moment that I met Mike. Sometime later, we were sitting around with some of our friends trying to recall exactly how we all came to know one another, and he suggested perhaps we had met at freshman orientation at college. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that it seemed like throughout my college career, Mike was always there and somehow participating. We had classes together, we partied together, and Mike had this really cool cabin out in Luray that we would all go to for big parties over the weekend. We referred to it affectionately as Mike's Mountain House. So throughout 3 years of college, I really came to appreciate Mike as a friend. He was a really solid guy. He was kind, he was generous, he was tons of fun. But strangely, he collected random people, almost like some people foster pets. And on any given moment, there would be Mike and this strange, interesting group of people that we had never known before, and they would kind of drift in and out of our lives and sometimes appear up at the mountain house. Well, after 3 years of this, we decided that it would be a really great idea if we rented an apartment together for our senior year in college. Now, in those days, my parents were not cool with the idea of me living with a guy, but my mom had met Mike. And she really liked Mike. Mike came over with me one time driving his work truck with a couple of our larger guy friends. And they helped move around and move out and move in a whole new set of furniture that my mom was trying to decorate with. During that time, she came to appreciate what a smart guy he was, what a kind guy he was, and she especially appreciated that he thought my mom was cool. It would take many years before her own children felt the same way about her. So when I said I want to live with Mike, my mom was totally on board with this. And so we moved into this 2-bedroom apartment together, along with 3 kegs. And this was when I learned the truth of that saying that proximity can breed anger, frustration, and all of those other things. I had grown up as the oldest of daughters. He had grown up as the oldest of sons. We were 2 older children who couldn't get along with one another, who had never had an opposite sex sibling, and who had very strong personalities. He came to really appreciate my feisty argument style, and I came to really appreciate his pig-headedness. And the arguments ensued over everything: the temperature, when we should pay the bills, whose food was which. But somehow we managed to survive this year living together and part as friends. I think that was a miracle. At graduation time, I turned the rest of my savings, as well as any graduation gifts that I had received, into a down payment on a condo in Reston. Mike moved into an apartment with another one of our mutual friends. Then I learned the dramatic difference between being a struggling college student and being a really struggling first-time homeowner. To say I was poor would put it mildly. But I was saved by having gotten my first new job starting in my career. It paid all of $18,000. And to get that money, I had to drive all the way from Reston to DuPont Circle. Now, I had tried the Metro, but here was the thing. After I paid for my Metro fare and I paid for my parking, I found that it took an hour and a half and cost me close to $10. But there was a parking garage not far from where I worked, and if I could get there by 8 o'clock in the morning, the early bird special was only $5. This was clearly the most economic way for me to afford to work at my job. And so I began to take all the back roads, coming through Great Falls, crossing on Chain Bridge, driving through Georgetown, and paying my $5 each day. Several months later, Mike called me up, and guess what? He had gotten a new job not that far from where I was working, and he thought it would be a really great idea if we commuted together. And I thought, what could go wrong? all, we had survived living together for an entire year. Not only that, I was going to be doing all of the driving. Now, the reason I was going to be doing all of the driving is because Mike's license was suspended yet again. For those early years when I knew him, I have to say this was pretty much a constant state. He was never able to drive anywhere because his driver's license was always suspended. So, to make up for the fact that I was going to be doing all of the driving, Mike was going to pay the $5 of my parking. And that was going to help me out so much. Not only that, it was going to shave approximately 15 minutes off my commuting time because I would be driving in from Reston to Fairfax. I'd pick him up and then we could commute together down 66. This was going to be great. The only thing was he had to be ready on time. I'm not a morning person. I struggled to get in the car on time each and every single day. Then I would drive to Fairfax, still trying to put on my makeup, and arrive at his apartment. Conveniently, there was a parking space that shone my headlights right inside his bedroom window. I'd pull in, I'd honk the horn, he was supposed to come out, jump in the car, and away we'd be. And that worked great for a couple of weeks. Then he started running a little bit later. I'd honk the horn, I'd sit and wait for a little while, and eventually he'd come out. Then I would honk the horn, I would wait for a little while, I'd see the light go on in the bathroom, and then he'd come out. Then, after several months, I'd pull in, I'd honk the horn, I'd see the light go on in the bedroom, I'd see the light go on in the bathroom, and then he'd come out. Meanwhile, I'm waiting for him, and I'm growing crankier by the minute. So one day, we're driving down the highway, and he was late, and I was cranky. And then he said, "Do you have to hit every single pothole on my side of the car?" And I thought about this for a minute. And I realized I didn't have to hit every single pothole on his side of the car. I get to. On another day, as I'm aiming for the potholes on his side of the car, I was keeping up polite conversation, and he said to me, "Would you just shut up? Your voice is so piercing in the morning, I can't stand it." And I thought, yeah, I could just shut up. But I really think I look good when I wear blue. Don't you think I look good when I wear blue? I mean, when I wear red, it brings out all the red in my cheeks, and I just don't feel I look my best, so blue is really my better color. What do you think? And he would crouch into his side of the car. And this is how we commuted to work, each and every single day. Until the last day. Now, this day was a Friday, and it was a federal holiday. In addition to the $18,000 that I was earning each year, I was also eligible for overtime. And on that particular week, I had already worked a full 40 hours, so I was only going to have to work a half day, and all of it was going to be a time and a half. This was going to be a fantastic day. As I'm driving to Fairfax, traffic is light, and I'm arriving a little bit ahead of time. This is good. I show up at Mike's house, I honk the horn, light goes on in the bedroom, light goes on in the bathroom. 10 minutes later, he's sitting in the passenger seat, and I'm yammering on about nonsense, aiming for every pothole on the side of the road. And then he hands me $3. And I look at that and I say, "What is this?" He goes, "Well, that's $3. And I said, "Well, I see that, but the deal was $5. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to give you the other $2 because I need that money for metro fare. Since you're only working a half day and I'm working a full day, I should only pay half." Well, we didn't discuss that. And also, I have to pay the full day's parking, whether I work a half day or not. So we proceeded to argue about this, as I'm aiming for every pothole. And we bicker like children, on and on and on, until finally he says these words. Well, at least I'm not driving like an incompetent fool. Again, the guy whose driver's license is suspended. Now, I don't know exactly what happened next. I think I was possessed by some kind of demon, because my head began to swivel around on my neck as I pulled over onto the shoulder of 66, slamming on the brakes. And he flings forward and back, and he looks at me, and I said, "Get out!" And there must have been something on my face that scared him a little bit, because he did. And then he slammed the door, and I drove to work. And somehow I managed to put the whole incident behind me until my desk line rang. And I picked it up, and it was one of our friends, and he said, "Catherine, thank you so much. I just had the best breakfast." Mike called me from the IHOP at Nutley Street and told me that if I would pick him up and drive him to work, he would buy me food. And so I did. And by the way, I think you said the right thing to him. Well, I didn't see Mike again for a while after that. I didn't call. Frankly, I was a little bit afraid of what had happened. And then his roommate called me up and said, "Hey, we're having a party next week. Why don't you come over?" And I said, "I don't know. Does Mike know I'm coming?" And he said, "I think it'll be fine." So I showed up at the party. Mike saw me from across the room, and he ran over and he gave me this great big old hug. And I said, "Do we need to talk about this?" He said, Nah, that's in the past." And it really was. We're still friends to this day. And as a matter of fact, in April, we're going to be going down to New Orleans for the Jazz Festival. And I'm really excited about it. But this time, one of the things that's going to be a little bit different is we're driving. And actually, Mike is going to be picking me up. I hope there's no potholes.